Amazon said only medical supplies and everything got pushed back 26 days. And then the supplier, the warehouse, and the manufacturer all shut down for COVID. So we went 45 days, no revenue.
Zero.
So
and you don't have like your own warehouse that ships.
We were just doing Amazon. We were doing $8 million a year. Whoa. We were just starting to build it off. And so then I had like my consulting contracts. Like
do you need someone to host inventory and ship and fulfill? Because we can do that.
Well, now I'm in a different boat. Like you don't know this, but like this is my backpack company.
Oh, right on, dude.
Yeah. So like I'll hook you up, bro. Like anybody you want. Like we made bags that were like, how do we make better backpacks for dads that outsmoke everything but are dope? And we're like, so my business partner's an engineer. We do $5 million a year with 2 employees.
Yeah, that's killer, dude. We just got our newest one done.
Yeah. Oh, I saw you post about yours. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, so, but yeah, we got hammered. And then like my consulting, like obviously I would never do this to you, but like if your company hired me, like I would do like a 3-day intensive where I come in, we like design your marketing for the next year, customer journey, everything. That's like 100 to 200 grand.
Yeah.
I had 6 contracts pull in 2 weeks, bro. I just bought a $2 million house in Mammoth.
And now panicked.
2 fucking BMWs. And my wife a new goddamn horse.
We have a new horse.
8 weeks prior, bro. Like, I was like...
Everything's fine.
And
this is fine.
And so I was like, what am I good at? I'm like selling. I'm like, but if I do that, I'm going to fuck this up. I was like, what do I do? I'm like, I'll launch a podcast. I just needed gap. Like I needed time.
Yeah.
And then like, I barely made it. I had to sunset my mastermind because they were all doing e-commerce. And so that was 300 grand a month.
Oh man.
Bro. And I was
so much money not coming in.
And I was like, I'm glad I beat my addictions. I'm glad I went to war. I'm glad I've been through this. What do I do? I was like, and fucking Stefanos, my best friend and business partner, Stefanos, who's in Austin. I was like, bro, dude, he's like, sit with it longer. And I was like, fuck you, consciousness coach.
Oh man.
And like, it really, and then like it cleared out. And then I was like, oh, I'll do this. I let this go. I walked away from this. Like now we're back above break even. But bro, it was hard.
That's ugly. That's ugly water.
And somehow I managed to regain my weight and my fitness and my marriage in the middle of it.
Well, but it just goes to show, right? That like, I know for me, like when shit hits the fan and I'm trying not to panic, it's, stay in control of what you can stay in control of. You can't let those fucking go too.
Totally.
Me getting fat and stressed out isn't helping anything. I mean, like,
I was like, this is looking too much like my binge eating in the past. And I was like, making it. So I'm like, oh, do you don't have to train? Work.
So dude, just because I know the people on my end listening to this, and I know we're going to share the episode, but they don't know exactly what you do. And then I'll explain who I am as well. So.
So for the tableside conversation, which I peed, so we have a lot of time with. So I say I help companies ethically scale, right? So basically, I'm like MacGyver of marketing.
All right.
Where I had to figure it all out. And I lost a lot of money, made a lot of money, didn't go to school, but had to survive. So I became really successful. New York Times bestselling book, #1 app, blah, blah, blah.
What's the book?
The book was The Paleo Kitchen. So I wrote a cookbook, which I had to teach myself how to cook, photograph it, do all that. And then I only had an email list of like 2,000 people and 8,000 social media fans. And my publisher was like, you'll never be a New York Times bestseller. I was like, don't tell me that. I went on to become a 22-week New York Times bestseller. Crazy. And I hit #4 in the world. And through that process, and then I launched an app and we hit #1. Apple voted us the top health app of 2015, which was like a recipe app and things like that. And I realized that I did things differently because I didn't come from this background of like marketing or business or school. I was like, I'm a jarhead. I have 3 colors of crayons in my box. What is the most simplistic and effective way to do this? And how can I prioritize people over strategies and tactics? And it was like how I led my Marines and everything. So that led to it. So when I walked away from that company, I went behind the scenes and all these companies like, how'd you do it? How'd you do it? And then, I get my hands on like Men's Health and supplement companies. And I start applying customer psychology and customer journey, and they start 10xing their business. They start 20xing their email revenue.
Wow.
And so I kind of became like this Wizard of Oz speakeasy digital marketing consultant that nobody wanted to tell anybody I was doing it. And they wanted to keep me in their pocket. And they would like,
of course,
me
right?
around.
Like, you find a magic lamp. You're not trying to hand it out to your buddies.
And it was great because like, I was like, wow, like my phone is ringing nonstop. I mean, like I'm talking NBA teams, Adidas, the president of Playboy. I mean, like I would meet them on a flight and talk to them. They'd hire me. Like they'd heard my name somewhere because it was circling. And so it was like shooting fish in a barrel for like 2 years. Cause like when somebody had that I would plug their holes of like, don't disrespect them, fulfill on what you promise. And it's like rocket fuel.
Which those seem pretty basic.
You would swear, but people focus so much on acquisition, they forget about retention. And here's what I tell people. I tell everybody this. I'm like, you can't adopt any more children until you feed the ones that you have. And so people adopt these children and they adopt them into poverty. And so like I started going behind the scenes of all these businesses, and like I basically got a crash course. Like nobody knows this. I've never talked about this. I had never run a Facebook ad in my life. And my first ad budget was $20 million a year. And they're like, can you do this? And I was like,
Yeah. Well, there's so many zeros in that.
I'm like researching. I'm like, how do I do this? And like, I got to the point where I was like, it's principles. It's not the money, it's principles. And I was like, what principles do we employ? And like, I ended up 5Xing that. And so I got like this crash course in digital marketing and consulting by playing Monopoly with other people's money. Wow. And luckily I like have morals and a heart. And I was like, this is mine. Like, I'm going to make this work. And I did that for years. And then it was like 2 years ago, like after I met you and people started, everyone's like, okay, what the F are you doing? And I was like, well, I'm doing a lot. And they're like, no, you got to
witchcraft.
Talk about this. And then my wife was like, hey, listen, you talk too much. I need you to go back on the public somewhere. Because I had deleted social media. I was like gone. I was like a ghost, man, like Jason Bourne of marketing. And she's like, listen, our marriage works better when you listen more, but you don't talk enough anymore. So like do something. I need
you to get that energy out.
She's like, go back on social. And so like we started social again, and I just started to like kind of drip out and like teach people stuff. And so now I basically help entrepreneurs of any level. We have something my team can help, like just getting started, to 6 figures, 7 figures to scale up. And it's all focused on basically the holistic approach of you, like where you spend your time, how to maximize your sales, how to retain customers, including like customer psychology, your practice, like controlling the things you control, plus some of the best dope marketing customer journey stuff in the world.
Man.
That's like summary.
Yeah, that's way exciting. I have a lot of questions now.
I love it.
For me, for your people, I guess got my start as competing in string sports, Highland Games, 28 till 2016, I guess was my Highland Games run. Won 2 world championships, and then out of the other probably 200 times I competed in that stretch, like literally.
Yeah.
I've never not been on the podium. Had a really fun career in that sport. And then when I got into that sport, I had started writing a book. One of the philosophies in the book was this idea of the hate of this, pushing myself to be better and me holding me accountable, hating my own bullshit.
Yep.
Right? Amazing how much that's continued the rest of my life of just not tolerating my shit.
Yeah.
The brand started to grow. We started making shirts, and now we're 7 years in, closing in on 8. And we're a 7-figure business for the last 4 years. It's growing and still been good. So
it's funny. It took me like 3 years of even knowing you to figure out how to pronounce.
Yeah,
the name
I'm aware.
of the brand.
There's a lot of things within the marketing world. Like, should I've named everything completely different entities?
I also love it though.
Like, great.
I explained it to somebody because I was like, oh, my buddy Matt's in town. We're gonna do a podcast. I was like, I haven't seen him in like 3 years. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God. And like, what's his brand? I was like, HVIII. And like, I'm like, look at it. And they're like, I'm like, break it down. And they're like, oh, I like that. What's it mean? I'm like, what do you think it means? I was like, do you hate the brand? Do you hate this?
Right.
And I was like, I love the interpretation and kind of like it's a little ambiguous.
Well, I'm proud to hear that. And that's pivoted into, I've got a coffee company, Habit, that's very small, getting going. And then Hate Brand's the main thing. And then the podcast is its own thing. And then we have the YouTube side of stuff. So it's putting the message out of why we do what we do as much as possible.
Totally. Well, I think one of the things I noticed, and I was so stoked to have this conversation, like since the day I met you, you've always been the same, but it's always kind of like this same philosophy, like control what I control, put in the work, like no one's coming to save me. And at the same time, like this is a long game. Like I've watched you like morph your body and morph your mindset, but like you consistently apply it everywhere. Like there's no back doors, there's no excuses. There's like, hey, it's me and me and me. And you apply it wherever you go. And like, I absolutely love that. So when I started, like I watched your video on like what the Hate brand meant. And I was like, God, it actually means something different to me, but I love the interpretation of it. Cause like I watch you and I was like, oh, you're like, I'm going to start running. And I was like, he went from knee surgeries and I can't to like, now he's running 18 miles.
Well, and again, like something like that, the story I want to show people isn't this, look what I can do. Mm-hmm. It's just a simple fact of like, I'm not a good runner. after 18 weeks, but I'm better than I was.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that matters is just the progress of it. And I treat my business growth the same way. It's like, I'll take 10% growth for the rest of ever. That sounds awesome to me.
Well, and that's what I think is so amazing. Like even like when I met, like we met by accident. We were both in one place and we were told about one thing.
Athlete influencer summit odd thing.
Yeah, that Aubrey put was amazing. And then you were invited and then he's like, you're speaking. And I was like, awesome. And then we had like Lance Armstrong and I was like, okay, this is cool.
It was a really cool thing.
And I've watched like since then, and like it's the one thing that took me losing a lot of money, like a lot of millions of dollars over the years, to realize like you don't win this game by hitting home runs. The game is won through base hits.
Dude, well, you can't bank on home runs.
No.
Occasionally they happen and it's just thanks for the fire.
1,000%. And like even me, like I was like, even like when I was just consulting, it was like feast or famine. Like you have these like like 6-7 figure months, but then I'm dry.
And then dry.
For like 6 months. Cause like courting somebody.
Well, not only that, it takes so much work. And then in the process, I can't chase new business while I'm in it.
Exactly. And like for me, I was like, what are those things? Like before we were recording, it was like the things that I control are the things that I do every single day. And like I've watched you, like I remember like your house, you're like, I'm in the ice bath, like I'm doing this. And like it's consistent. Like you consistently post a naked picture every vacation.
That's about true.
I love that. I'm like, you're the easiest person to introduce on a podcast. I like had it scripted. I'm like the guy that's compassionate, humility, loves the plant medicine, and also takes a naked picture everywhere he travels and unapologetically owns who he is.
Man, at that point when I went to the influencer summit, I'm not really sure. I'd maybe just started dabbling in psychedelics. Like, that may have been like my first weekend trying mushrooms.
It's about mine too.
And man, it's been the craziest change in my life. It's not everything. And the best way for me is it's just this other level of like, I can't lie to me at all.
Yeah.
And that's really good for me.
Yeah.
Especially like coming out of pain or doing any of that with the ice tub, cold bath, controlling those things that I could. I can't complain if I'm not taking care of all the little things. I have to at least do all that.
Mm-hmm. Dude, my problem was like, I came from trauma as a kid, like drug abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. I emancipated myself super young. Wow. I was homeless at 13, working full time.
Oh man.
And I still went to school because I was like, I don't want to be like my parents. So I would like sleep in friends' basements and their parents never ask questions, and their parents are still my best friends to this day. Right.
There's good people out there, man. They just see like, the people need a help.
They're like, yep, you're in the basement for 6 months. We're not going to ask. Right. Or like, here's a shirt or here's some money. Oh, you live here. Got it. Yeah. And like, it's funny. I spend more time with them than their own children do now. But like, I was like, I got to be different. And here's the problem though. It's like, I went from that to like, I'm going to forge my parents' signature to join the Marine Corps, right? I was 60 pounds overweight because I was bulimic and I was bullied and like, it was horrible. So I had a recruiter put me through like this crash wrestling thing. Oh, I lost like 60 pounds in like, 45 days.
Yeah, wrestling's gnarly.
And then I shoot to boot camp and like, I come out of boot camp like 150 pounds soaking wet looking like Skeletor. And they're like, oh, you're broken? Oh, let's use that. Be broken more. Don't share your feelings. Don't process any of this, but turn it into. And so then I spent 12 years.
This is like what, 1920?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wait, what?
Yeah, years old.
Oh yeah, I was 17 when I joined. Yeah. I left right when I turned 18, which is like 2002. And then I was on active duty from 2002 to 2014. And so I did Somalia in 2004. I almost lost both my legs.
Oh my God.
So I got bilateral exercise-induced compartment syndrome on a mission because I was using steroids that I got from the French pharmacist outside the gate in Somalia.
Le steroids?
To lift weights. Yeah. Because I was like bullied and beat up my whole life. Right. So I'm like 230 pounds. I'm ripped. Right?
Also, you're not getting the best best steroid guidance.
We don't even know. I'm like me and this dude in our tent living in Somalia. Like, and I was like post cycle. I was like, okay, I made it 6 weeks before I cried and quit, and I've never done it since. And it was like this thing, and it like didn't do anything but make me really angry. But I was like 230 pounds. I had 100 pounds of gear on. It's 130 degrees. And my legs had always had issues. Like, I'm not built to be a runner. I'm stocky like a bulldog. And it's like, I start running, it feels like shin splints, and I couldn't stop. And I ran through it and they went numb, and then I passed out and I woke up. I had blood everywhere. They had drained my legs. The compartments in my legs almost exploded. He stopped them from exploding. He opened them on the helo.
Yeah, I've seen that with someone had to do like Matt Chan, a CrossFitter. Yeah.
1, 2, both sides. And so then the Marine Corps is like, oh, it's shin splints. 7 more months in country. And so then I leave. I leave Somalia.
You don't have to cut your legs open for shin splints.
And we land, and we have to do a post-deployment physical, like within the first 6 hours. So they're going through, and they're like, anything happened? I was like, yeah. They did an MRI. I was on an operating table in an hour. I had clots everywhere. I flew back from Africa over like 4 days.
Dude, it's one of those situations, right, where the universe is like, he doesn't know better.
Yeah.
We'll throw him a bone.
Yeah.
Don't test the universe, but occasionally, like, if you're just too dumb to know better, it'll throw you a bone.
And I mean, the military's like, here's an ibuprofen, you're fine. Here's an ibuprofen, you're fine, right? So I ended up having 6 surgeries. They wanted to amputate my legs. They said I'd never walk again. They did partials, didn't work. Then they did full. So I was in a wheelchair for 12 months. I had a PCA pump, so I got addicted to opiates. I had morphine every 6 minutes.
And it's great.
And then they're like, oh, you're off this. Here's some hydrocodone. And so I'm like, not feeling. I just went through war. I lost friends. I have my child on top of it.
You're in a wheelchair.
I'm in a wheelchair. I gained 100 pounds because all I did was start feeding my bulimia, right? Like I was struggling. I was like eating pizza and ranch and boom, because I was alone in a barracks room. Like it was dark. And then I attempted my life. I took 60 hydrocodone with a bottle of liquor, and like that was it. And oh God, I've actually never talked about this on a podcast, but no one's ever asked. I was so done, like so done. Like my parents were in legal battles. My brother was like a lost cause because of their shit. Like I wasn't speaking to them. I had no friends. Like I was alone in a barracks room after 13 months in Somalia. And like the Marine Corps is like, get better or you're out. I'm like, out where? Where are you going to send me? Back there?
Yeah, what's there?
And so like, I'm like, they like created an addict, and like I was alone. I was like, I'm just done. Like I'm done. And bro, this was June. I remember this like it was yesterday. It was June of 2005. And like, it wasn't even like a bad, sad thing. It was just almost like I had no fight left. Like I was just done.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And I'll never forget, I woke up the next morning and I thought I was dead. Like I just like thought I was dead. I was like, there's no way. And it took me hours to realize like nothing happened. Like I woke up fine. And it was crazy, but it changed something in me.
Yeah.
Like, something really, really deep. And I was like, okay, listen, I could never do that again. I'm too chicken shit, like ever. Trust me. And I was like, there has to be a reason. Like I can't run from this and say, I want to be different and then quit, right? Like this is going to be a lonely road, but like I have to do it. And I luckily had this little physical therapist, man. She was like 5'1", this little Asian lady weighed like 98 pounds who like kicked my fucking ass. She's like, listen, you don't have a choice. You're in the government. You're in the military. You have to come to physical therapy 8 hours a day. That's your only job. You're getting paid to do this. She threw Vibrant 5 fingers on me and retaught me how to walk, retaught me how to run, signed me up for a triathlon. And then I won the fucking thing.
Fucking hell.
And then that started like my addiction, like this fitness recovery. And then I was like, oh, I made a recovery. And then my dad got diagnosed with metastatic brain and lung cancer. So then I got sent home on a humanitarian transfer for 9 months to take care of him.
Yeah.
And then he died in front of me and I had to pull him off life support. And so like I'm dealing with trauma. I'm now his parent. I'm his caregiver. I sold everything I owned, my boat, my truck, my motorcycles, to take care of his debt, his drug debt, his past, because I wanted to rekindle that and fix that. And I lost him. Then my brother was homeless, moved in with me to Hawaii. I get to Hawaii for 3 months. They transferred me to Pendleton.
How did you get to Hawaii? Oh,
they transfer me.
Got it.
3 months later, they transferred me to Pendleton. Like, you're going to Afghanistan in a month. Like that was my break.
And
my brother's now living with me, jobless.
Still trying to figure it out.
And I'm trying to figure it out. And I was like, dude, I love you. You're 18 now. I was like, I'll keep the electricity on in the house, but you got to figure out. He ended up moving with my sister, which ended up being good. And then I went to Afghanistan, and then I'm already like limited duty. They wanted to amputate my legs, right? And of course, like in my recovery, I did a triathlon, I did blah, 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 blah. And I made all that. And then they wanted to they're like, okay, I fought my way back on full duty because I was scared of getting out. So then I do deployments.
Because what do you do?
I become a martial arts instructor in the Marine Corps, right? I do this, I start CrossFitting, and I was like, oh, and then I started applying myself. And then I got 7 concussions in 2 years. I got blasted, I got TBI, I got bleeding on my brain, fluid on my brain. And so I'm just like Band-Aid, 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 Band-Aid. And then eventually, after that deployment, the Marine Corps was like, hey, Mo, like, you're not good anymore. And I was like, there was nowhere to hide anymore. Like I would hide in fitness, I would hide in these accomplishments, and it all just started to unravel. And luckily my med board took like 7 months. So I had some time. And then instead of healing, I was like, I'll be an entrepreneur.
I'll do another thing that's really stressful.
And then another thing, and really that continued until we got to the point where my wife was 8 months pregnant, and I'd basically been running for almost 13, 14 years. Wow. And I had been through cognitive behavioral therapy, prolonged exposure, but I was like Matt Damon. I was like running circles around these dudes in Good Will Hunting because I was like, you don't want to help me. This isn't helping me. And then I was blessed and so lucky. A dude met me and he's like, listen, I'm an EMDR therapist. I'm going to do this pro bono. And I was like, you're out of your fucking mind. Go. Like, no way. And like one appointment, like changed my life.
So MDMR?
EMDR.
What is
eye movement desensitization and reprocessing.
I don't know anything about that.
So basically it's a multiple modality way to map backwards your trauma on where your body, your brain has started a neural pathways and your physical body, get to the root of it and then reinstill a new belief.
Whoa.
And it's crazy because, you know, like talk therapy, things like that, to like, tell me about this, tell me about that. And like, you're like kind of guiding it with EMDR. He's like, pick a traumatic event. And I'm like, and I had plenty to choose from. I'm like, when I found my Marine hanging in his barracks room, Tom, and I'm Tom Dang, I miss you, brother. Man, when I found him, it wasn't that he was gone. It was the guilt that I didn't do something. How did I take you there and take you home and lose you here? Right. And so he's like, think about that. Like, how do you feel? And I'm like, bro, it's like a 10 out of 10. Like I'm crawling, I'm angry. And he's like, okay, cool. He's like, in the ultimate game, like, what would you want to feel? Like, I would want to feel safe. I'd want to feel forgiven, like, boom. It's like, all right, cool. And he's like, think about Tom. That's it. And then they have a light bar in front of you, like 18 to 20 inches wide. And the light goes back and forth like Knight Rider.
Okay.
Right? And then you have a buzzer in each hand, which just vibrates. And then you have audio in your ears. And so it goes unilaterally. So when the light hits the right side, your hand buzzes and your ear dings. And then it goes left and right.
And are you following it? Or
yeah, you're just looking at it. And then he's like, think about Tom. And they do it for a series, like 10 blinks or 15 blinks. And then he's like, what'd you think about? And I was like, oh, I thought about when I was riding my bike when I was 3. And he's like, okay, think about that. Do it again. And you do it again. And you do it again. And occasionally they check in. And then you'll start to see how your memories are mapped together.
Whoa.
And you're like unraveling your memories.
Right, because Tom got you to this bicycling.
Which then got me to my dad not taking care of me when I got hurt, which then led to me feeling guilty for not taking care of Tom. And then Tom had 2 kids. And like you get to the root of it, and the root of it is that I felt out of control and unsafe.
Yeah.
But when you get to the bottom, he's like, think about Tom, what do you feel? And I was like, a 4?
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, like when Tom comes up, what would you want to feel? And I was like, I'd want to feel safe. And he's like, think about that. And then you remap back out. This can be over an appointment or 6 appointments. Like I did this for 18 months.
Wow.
But after one appointment, my wife's like, I have a husband, not some robotic, disconnected, PTSD induced. Like, I mean, I would wake up at 1 a.m. with a loaded pistol in my mouth. From a nightmare. Like there was a period in our life where my wife was changing the sheets 3 times a night because of night sweats. Yeah. And she couldn't get me out. She couldn't wake me up. Oh. And I mean, this went on.
Yeah, that's so scary for her too.
Oh, dude.
I can't even imagine.
I have a daughter who's 16 now, who was 11 at the time and would hear it because like, it's not like I'm quiet.
No.
And so like all of that was huge. So EMDR is what opened me up. And similarly to you, that opened up like, wow, I can be better. And then my wife's like, hey, you know, I know you think all drugs are bad. And then, like when I met my wife, I was like, you have marijuana in the house?
Well, especially, you come from this
that's a felony.
Addiction background.
I was like, get it out or we can't date, right? And now here I am like,
yeah, right.
Hey guys, what do you need? I got you. Like I live in free states. And like, it's like, but what I love about it is that basically what ended up happening, similar to you, is I got to this point in my life where I couldn't hide anymore. But I had gone through so much, I could hide from everybody who knew me because I was like, you can't trick me. Like I always have a story to keep you at bay. Wow. And so when you met me, my story was coming out loose and fast because I was like, look how vulnerable I am. So I'm really not vulnerable, Matt. So you don't get to know how fucking scared shitless I am and insecure I feel about you. And that's what started it all. And then when I did plant medicine, I couldn't hide from me anymore.
This Aya is this...
The first I did was MDMA-assisted psychotherapy, which then led to psilocybin.
So you're working with MAPS through it?
I found them through Rick, through Aubrey.
Okay.
Because Aubrey consistently never pushed me, but it's like, have you thought about it? And you have thought about it? And him and Kyle, and when I used to be friends, and like, it was really huge for me.
Yeah, it's what opened me up to everything.
And then it went to MDMA, and then it went to psilocybin, and then that was like 20 years of therapy in like a week.
Dude.
And it wasn't like, like I hated it. I hate the taste of mushrooms. Like
they're not good. No, they taste terrible.
And the integration was rough, but I had this like feeling of safety in me. I was like, okay, this is dark, but like there's progress being made. Like I have to integrate this. I have to do this. And then eventually I finally was called to Aya, went down, did that, went through multiple deaths.
Where'd you go?
I went to Rhythmia in Costa Rica.
We went there.
Yeah, Rhythmia. So Gerald and all of them. Yeah, they're amazing. So I ended up going there, and then, I ended up burying myself in my father's grave. I had to go back in time.
Oh.
Like I relived my combat experiences, all that stuff. And then went back with my wife.
Wow.
And we worked together, and that was not roses and rainbows.
No.
That was, we're getting divorced and we're both going to ceremony to heal ourselves. And now we're still together and obviously amazing. But yeah, I was the same way. And I know that was kind of a lot, but I've never talked about that ever.
No, but that's the journey, right? Like the Aya thing and all that changed a ton for me. The first time, I guess, that I got something big out of mushrooms, and I kind of had that realization of like, there's something here. Mm-hmm. And then from that, at that point, like I had just been dealing with chronic pain.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to find it out, whether that's ice bath, whether that's hot tub. Like I don't care
Same
whether
thing.
it's carnivore diet, anything that's changing a percentage for me, I'm diving in.
Yep.
And I remember like trying, like starting to smoke pot to not use opiates.
Yep.
Because like I need something for when the pain's at a 3.
Yep.
And it's always at a 3. So
always.
I can't just eat another Percocet because I'm a piece of shit with them.
Yep. Oh, I was a disconnected asshole.
They serve a purpose. If my pain's at an 8, cannabis isn't touching it.
Totally.
And so like doing that, and the first time with mushrooms, I just remember this feeling of like, why have we been told that this was this dangerous thing that isn't to help? Like, we've been fucking lied to.
Totally.
And then, the bummer about that and realizing like, well, I don't give a shit what anyone thinks is the right thing anymore. I'll try anything.
That's where I was, like, because like my childhood and my military career, I was like, I would cut people out of my life for smoking weed.
Right.
Because like for me as a child, weed meant coke, abuse,
of course,
social services,
loser.
Cops, like everything.
All the negative things, jail, loser, ruin your life. This is the first step in fuck up.
Everything. And so like there was a big period. I had some shadow work to be done on like even my relationship with myself, and then like things that I talk about and openly, and I still like work through it. But like I'm petrified of plants because they're powerful, and it like connects me to myself, and there's nowhere to hide.
Anytime, with legalization of say psilocybin or anything else, and for me, look, I make it all legal. Let adults make decisions. Totally. Let's work on education and let's work on support.
Yeah.
So with that going legal, and people that don't know, because most people's only influence with drugs is alcohol. Mm-hmm. And it's the worst chemical. I'm not sure why we decided to back that one as a group. But like with the psilocybin thing, like if you think that this is a thing that you're going to abuse, good luck.
That's what I tell people.
Best of luck. It doesn't play nicely with those type of things.
That's what I tell people. I was like, here's the funniest part. Like I was an addict, and I was like, I have zero, and I mean negative fear of ever becoming addicted. They scare me. I mean, like, and really, it's so funny to me. Like, I feel like
you got chemically addicted.
I did,
due to surgery and pain and these type of things. You didn't get addicted trying to escape from the trauma of childhood. Like, and I feel like those are two very, very different emotional reasons, or why the addiction got there.
Totally. Because my outlet for the childhood was bulimia.
Sure.
Because and I used to talk openly about this when I had the food blog. I wrote this massive blog, and in like 3 days, I had like 4 million views. Because I remember the title of it.
Because people don't talk about it.
I wrote, "Dear Bulimia, you fought hard, but I won." And they were like, this tattooed dude with an 8-pack competing in CrossFit who tied a world record was sticking his finger in his throat in porta potties in Afghanistan. I was like, bro, like I got feelings too.
Crazy for me to think about it in that environment that, you know, like I just never associate that character in the military in eating MREs in another country still purging.
Oh, and here's what's nuts. I noticed it everywhere. Wow. Dude, because like you think about orthorexia, you think about obsessive working out, like the Marine Corps of all branches is built on obsessiveness, like run through broken bones, run through shin splints, fight harder, kill more, work out more. But like, it's not like eat healthy. Like our Connex boxes were full of Pop-Tarts, Famous Amos cookies, and Rip It energy drinks.
That's the beauty of having a bunch of 22-year-olds.
And I was like, okay, go train, pass your kidney stones and get back to work, right? Like that's what it was. And so for me, it started because I was sexually abused by women. And after it happened, I was made fun of for being fat.
And so like this was as a kid?
As a kid, 9 and 13. And the
teacher or family?
No, family friends.
Wow.
Family friends and babysitter. And the 13 one was the bad one because that one was a lot more like, it was more real and more realistic and a lot worse. And, but I'll never forget, after they were done, they like made fun of me, called me fat and boom, boom, boom. And then I was never the popular kid in school. I had the drug addicted parents. I had an overbite.
Sure.
I had a bowl cut. I was wearing clothes that smelled like cigarette smoke.
Right, needless to say, your parents aren't making a bunch of money.
Yeah, no.
Right.
And so like I was already picked on. Like I was beat up. I had my front teeth broken 3 times, my nose broken twice. And I don't know what it was, Matt, but there was just always something in me that's like, I don't belong here. So like I would make friends with my teachers and I would hide in their rooms. And then like by senior year, I missed like 80 days. They just passed me. They're like, he needs a chance because I was working 3 full-time jobs. And quite frankly, I'm the most successful kid in my high school now, thank God. But yeah, it was, for me, it was a version of control because I was like,
well, you learned early on that there's no safety net.
None. And so I was like, why wasn't I bulimic? I was like, because the moment I would eat, I would feel comfort and love. And then I would feel the guilt that I had. And I was like, well, I can't be fat anymore. And so I would control it. And I was like, this is my way of controlling my weight. And boom. And it was like this toxic control thing of like, cause it was my way of not being vulnerable and not letting people in. Cause I had this like, it was basically like this bipolar abusive relationship with myself.
Sure.
I was like, I want to feel love. Let me eat this food. It'll make me feel good. It's the best dopamine I get. And then 10 minutes later, I'm like, you fat ass, you did this again. They said you were fat. Boom, boom, boom. No one will ever like you. And and I watch Marines do it all the time. And they hide it, right? Like, I'm at the gym for 6 hours. I was like, okay, rhabdo, adrenal fatigue, pick one. But it never went. And then the substances, all of it, the alcohol, like I'm still one of the only Marines I know that's never smoked a cigarette, never dipped. Like, but like they basically issue those to us. Right. And so, yeah, it was just
nicotine's
insane. Oh yeah, it's great.
It's a great upper.
Yeah, especially when they only let you sleep an hour a night on deployment, right? They're like, hey, here's your Tabasco sauce, your coffee beans, rub them in your eye and have your nicotine in your energy drinks. But yeah, so that like I relate so much to what you say because I was like, let me try ice baths. Like everyone's like,
I'm open now.
Everyone's like, you love the cold. I'm like, I hate the cold.
Yeah, I hate this.
I was like, but I'm not in pain for like 1 minute. And the mental challenge forces presence for me. I was like, the first time I feel like I was ever present as a human being was when I got in an ice bath.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting, right? Because, it's the same as for me, like really hot sauna or that gnarly bit during a workout of like, this sucks so much. This is the only thing going on.
Yep.
It makes the world really small again.
Yeah. And like what you said, it's like, it eliminates all the shit that I could use to hide from myself.
Yeah.
And like, that's why I did the extremes. Because like when I'm in that ice bath, I was like, there's no hiding.
Yeah.
I'm like, it is me with me and me. And like here living in Montana, when I do them, I'm like, there's plenty of days I go down to the lake and I cut a hole and I only make it 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And then there's other days I make it 10 minutes. And the relationship is just with me and like what I have that day. But it's crazy, dude.
And it like along those lines, right? Like now on the days that you have the short days and the days you have the long days, now that you're where you are, I mean, is it the intention I'm going to get in the ice and get cold and we'll do that as long as it.
Yeah. And like for me, like I just have, it's like the term I go to now is I want to have a platonic relationship with my experience. So it can't be I'm a loser or I'm a winner. It just happened.
Man, it's amazing what reframing that does.
Yeah.
Trying to guide my life now with this idea of like intention versus expectations. Mm-hmm. Because expectations means I know how the journey goes.
Yep.
Intention means I just want to go that way.
That's it.
I'm willing to weave left and right as need be.
That's it. And like for me, like I said, like I watch everything you do. So I'm like making assumptions, but like one of the things when I watch you commit, like you change your whole body type.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm changing my whole body type, right? And you're somebody who did 200 strongmans. You were world champion multiple times. Like you have a healthy relationship with winning.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a weird thing to lose, man. It was really weird to lose the athletic ability. Like I knew that I wouldn't compete at some point, but I wasn't prepared to not be athletic. Like I didn't realize how much I depend on this machine to operate for me to feel value, worth, ability, confidence, any of these things, because that's where it all stemmed from. Is that this thing's done whatever I've asked from it from jump. Been very, very fortunate in that. And then I switched from taking second at a world championship to 6 months later, like I can't go up and down a flight of stairs.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, oh, per surgical healing. It was like, oh, this isn't getting better.
Yeah.
And it got really dark. I got really scared about it. I could just see down the road was basic routine life. And I'm not interested.
Yeah.
I just am not into it. Mm-hmm. And, you know, luckily for me, finding plant medicine and then finding other really smart people to be able to share communication with and relationships and talk, whether that's guys like Aubrey or Kelly Starrett or any of these other guys that I'm just fortunate enough to have friends. I lost my dad back in 2014 and to pancreatic cancer. And I think what a weird thing, because like Hate Brand didn't start until October of 2014. And so like even that year with all that roughness, I won a world championship in June. He passed away in April. And for me, it was like, control what you can control. Yeah. There's no reason to let this fall. He's gone, right? Like we're not fixing it by crying. This is the way to honor anything there is. And so, and not only that, like I need it.
Totally.
I fucking need it.
Yeah. And like what I think is incredible, like, you know, that platonic relationship, like I'm like, I was like, oh, you got to figure it out. I'm like, on a scale of 0 to 100%, I'm at like a 1.7. And I'm so in love with that 1.7. Yeah. Like, I feel like I have made it. I'm almost at 2% of like whatever you want this thing to be. And I was like, but even then, like, I've learned that like to your intention thing, one of my teachers and one of my dear friends, we work together. It's like, there's only two things we can control. We can only control our intention and our energy. And it's hilarious because if I look at a result in my life, like my fitness, and I was like, oh, I'm so bummed I can't do that. But then I honestly grade myself on like, what was my intention? Like, how clear was I what I wanted? How much did I make a plan? And then what was my energy? And I give it like a 0 to 10. I end up with like a 4 and a 5, and I'm upset I don't have 10 results.
Well, so that was something like with that idea, like I had that regarding, and I run into it with athletes that get injured and have to retire. And it feels like I left this thing on the table that I hadn't done yet. Yeah. Right. And so like I was able to realize smart enough that like I'm never going to throw again competitively, and I'm never going to be stronger than I was. Yep. So say thanks. Just be stoked on what we figured out, because even if I'm like, I could have squatted more, I could have done this, or I could have thrown further, I didn't. Yeah, exactly. I didn't. And I gave it hell. And I know enough to trust myself to say like, yo, you didn't cut it short. You gave it everything you felt you could at the time. And anything you didn't, you chose not to for a reason. You weren't lazy. Yeah. And so here's the results. Yep. If you're curious what this meat machine can squat, we have a number. Yeah. Don't have a feeling about it. We found out. Yep. And that's a metric to move forward with. Like, I don't need to prove how much I can squat again broken at 40. I'm very happy with the number I've got. So let's go find some new shit to do. Totally.
I feel like one of my biggest struggles on that topic was I was addicted to the ambiguity because of the quote unquote possibility. So I would keep things ambiguous to try to program or brainwash myself, because what I was doing is I was borrowing confidence or traits that I needed from this persona that I was trying to be. And I got to a point in my life where I borrowed enough that I could finally create it regardless of the result.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because like I think about coaching, right? Like you've coached athletes, I coach entrepreneurs. Really, what is our job as a coach? Our job is to show up with a little more so they can borrow it until they create their own. Never to do it for them.
Sure.
Right? The best coaches never run your race. They're just a mirror for you in a safe space for you to be in your experience and when needed.
Yeah, I've recently ran into that with hate. Like, when up until 2 years ago when I hired Bryant and got to St. Louis and resorted life, I don't have any employees.
Yep.
And so I'm doing everything.
Yep.
I've had people that come in and help, photographer I'll hire here and there, but no one's ever in it full time with me. And then I got Bryant and realized like what a superpower it is to have help and then start bringing on people. But at that point, like I've outsourced our email marketing. I've outsourced this other bit and they're all helping because I don't have enough RAM to do it all.
Yep.
And so I have to stay focused on the parts of the business that I can't pay someone to do, whether that's, I can't pay someone to create the message.
Yep.
And I can't pay someone to find the voice of it. And so I outsourced that bit. And now that we've got, a more creative team in house, we've brought it back on board as ours and it's really starting to grow now. They did me a huge solid, that company Jump Influence that I worked with for a long time, but they were aware that as this grows, this will be a thing. You can do it better only handling your email than we handle 10 companies.
Yeah.
And that made a big change, man.
Totally.
Currently, my thing is I'm trying to figure out how to get the horsepower to the coffee company.
So I owned a coffee company.
Okay.
Nobody knows this.
Okay, good.
It was the biggest mistake of my life, but I don't think everybody follows that. But we played a very good game. My buddy already owned a coffee company in Mammoth and it was amazing, a roaster. And I was like, I was a food blogger at the time. I was a paleo food blogger. So I'm not going to bring in some like low quality coffee. I'm like, we're going top of the line. We're teach how to roast it, the best process stuff. And I was like, oh, we make like 3 pennies a bag.
Yeah.
Like, oh, and like when you get into coffee, you're like, oh, once it's roasted, it only lasts for 21 days before it off gases and it gets stale. And then you have mycotoxins and mold. And I was like, so I didn't do the logistics first. And I was like buying beans at like $16 a pound green. And then luckily we were roasting them and doing it. I was like, well, I'm charging like $30 for a 12-ounce bag.
That's too much.
And I don't really have a quote unquote on it experience to justify this or some like black label. And I was like, so, I mean, it was hard. And then like I was selling it to people that weren't as into coffee, so they couldn't appreciate it. So we were brewing it wrong. And it was like, and coffee's tough. Coffee's tough.
The thing about coffee though is, it's the second most traded thing on the planet.
I know.
People buy the shit out of it. That and tea, like figuring out how to get into that. Luckily for us, like I looked at coffee as the quality of the product has to be there. That's not even worth discussing.
Non-negotiable.
The branding side of it is the fun part. And I really like what we've created. And now I'm aware that like it's in such a loud, noisy market. How do we find the separation?
I think the one thing, and I actually still help coffee companies because like I help any e-commerce company. Like it's really interesting because I own multiple e-commerce companies and I also have done all the digital stuff. And so like I can basically change my hats as much as I want. But the one thing I tell people about any consumable, whether it's food, whether it's coffee, whether it's a supplement, I was like, you have to remember you're not selling to an open door. You're selling to an existing habit of somebody else's brand, product, or activity. And so what everybody tries to do is they try to get their attention and change their habit, but it creates more reactance because it's too far out of their acceptable limit of change. So Jonah Berger calls this the movable middle in his book, The Catalyst. It's an amazing book on how to change anybody's mind. It's called The Catalyst. And what ends up happening is that we know we want to change somebody's behavior. We want them to switch coffee companies, right? I'll use coffee for an example. We want them to go from this coffee company to mine. So we show up with a better option, but they have endowment to their current lifestyle and their current habits.
Yeah, people don't like change.
And so if we show up, we actually become a threat to their safety. And so they dig in more to go against our brand because we are too far out of their acceptable range. So Jonah Berger calls this the movable middle, right? If they're at the 0 and we want them on the 50-yard line, they might be open to about the 5, but everybody tries to sell on the 50. And I was like, no, our job is to have patience because it's a longer game to transition because you have to unravel a habit or introduce a belief or a challenge that unravels their current habit and then be consistently there introducing a new one until they know, like, and trust you and they're open to trying one, whether it's a sample, whether it's a free bag, whether it's they see you at something, but you can't go to the 50, you have to go to the 5. So the 5 might be helping them make their current cup of coffee better. how to brew it differently, how to change the flavors of it, how to make recipes with it, as you as a brand, the person teaching them how to make somebody else's coffee taste better.
Right.
And they're like, oh, if they can help me make somebody else's coffee taste better. Oh, they have coffee. Oh, they've been helping me. These other people don't help me.
Yeah, the education side of
so
brewing
it's
good
really
coffee.
like you friend zone yourself until you steal the girl.
Damn it. This is what I've done with the rest of relationships. I need to figure out that side. Yeah.
Because that's where people lose this game. The one thing I see in the e-commerce market, brands across the board, and the reason I have a job is because all they're focusing on is acquisition. But when all they're looking at is the pretty girls walking by, they're ignoring all the ones they have.
You know, and for us, like at least with hate, I see that. And one of the reasons that we have done the business the way we do, like we release new stuff.
Oh, you guys are amazing
weekly.
at it. I want all your stuff.
And the way I thought about it was like, I have two types of customers. I have returning and new.
Yep.
New customers will buy whatever has just shown up.
Yep.
But the old customers, if they already have it, they're not buying a second one.
Yep.
So I need to keep feeding them
Yep.
with this new stuff and keep them on board and new content and new material.
Yep.
Because getting new customers is always way harder
Yep.
than keeping ones you got.
And they cost 10 times more.
And we got like, I think right now we're at a 78% return.
Yeah, that's mind blowing.
Yeah,
that's
we
mind
have
blowing.
it. Like for the followings I have or any
Yeah.
of those type of things, we're doing very well business.
Yeah, for sure.
And
yeah, so I think for me, like the biggest thing when I think about this is like people always go to the close, right? And I was like, you have to remember there's like 5 phases to a customer buying cycle. There's endowment. There's like, it doesn't matter what it is. It's like, when you imagine like people laugh like, oh, billboards. I'm like, the reason people still use them is because they still work. They might not be an effective marketing medium for you, but nobody at their right mind invests money that they're pissing down the toilet. So you see that billboard every day for 3 months, and then you get retargeted with an ad. You don't realize you had 91 touch points already.
yeah.
And so they don't need to top of funnel you. They already have you because they know you live in that area and you drive that route based on our ability to market and following your phone. And so then all of a sudden you can't figure out why you're so engaged with this ad that you've never seen before.
You know, it's a really weird psychology thing I'd heard years ago, and I don't have any validity
Yeah.
whether or not this is true.
We
but
can make it real.
I liked it.
Yeah.
Was we were in LA doing something and going to see a friend, and we were talking about the movie posters.
Yep.
Because they don't exist in other cities.
Nope.
And he said, it's not for advertising the film. It's the movie companies will put them in route to set for the stars so that they see it and they stay pumped.
Oh, I would not.
And I'm like, that's brilliant.
I would not doubt that for one instant.
Because it doesn't cost anything in the grand scheme of whatever that movie budget was to keep Chris Pine or any of these other The Rock stoked on this project he's doing when he sees a 40-foot him on the side of a building.
I would not doubt that at all.
Like, damn it.
At all. Like
And that and the crew and everyone to see like that's what we're making.
Yep. I wouldn't doubt that at all. I mean, it's so interesting. Like, so for me, like what I've noticed, and even like with your stuff, I follow all your stuff, but the coffee stuff, like you have the ability, you have one thing that nobody else can take away from you, which is your ability to emote and relate with a human, right? And it's like, well, I'm going to pull this off the table. You cannot compete coffee for coffee because they already have an existing coffee habit. And so really the only thing you can compete on is price, but you're not going to reduce the quality. So you can't play on that game. And I was like, so where can you compete? You can compete in depth of relationship, depth of value, consistency, patience over a long period of time. And eventually it all erodes away. And the person who's been there the most has given the most touch points for the consumer to feel safe. Because what a lot of people miss about
we're not going anywhere. We're making coffee.
Consumer behavior is they're like, I want the sale, I want the sale, I want the sale. It's like so many people sell to people when they're not ready, which actually in the long game hurts. Because it's a one-time customer that could have been a 4-time. The average consumer gives 8 to 10 brand recommendations or non-recommendations in one conversation. Wow. And 86%+ of marketing is word of mouth. And so yes, you convince them on day one, and your product's been sitting on their shelf or in their closet and they've never used it. And then when their friend's like, hey, I want to buy this, they're like, don't, it's not that good.
And they've never opened it.
They never even opened it. Because it was this premature. It's like, hey, consent matters, right?
Yeah.
And so like I love and I teach and use permission-based marketing where you show up consistently to where the person enrolls themselves, because that's the differentiator. When you convince somebody, which is like a lot of the fitness industry, right? You're fat, you're broken, you don't recover. Cool. Why do you think they all change supplement brands every 3 months?
Because it didn't work. Meanwhile, they didn't.
Because they're teaching you, you're broken, you're broken, you're broken, you're
Meanwhile,
broken.
the rest
broken.
of us on the other side know there's no difference in any of the supplement brands.
None. I'm like, they all use the same supplier.
Right.
They're just changing the label, right? And I was like, but who does win? The ones that are like, hey, our supplements aren't the secret. Let us help you change your habits and use our supplements. And then even when they don't use them, they buy more and recommend you and can't leave.
Yeah, you stay on the side of give.
That's it.
Right. Where they almost feel obligated to support because they keep getting from you.
That's the game of reciprocity. And so like, I look at people all the time and I was like, listen, you just got to court them a little bit more.
Yeah.
Find the commonalities and find the pain points. I know the pain points of the coffee industry. There's reasons that like Black Rifle were able to take off and go.
Yeah, killed it.
And these things that happen, right? And
it ain't about the coffee.
It's not about the coffee.
And I mean, like I said, I'm not saying they don't make great coffee.
No, their coffee's good, but it's not
great.
It's not why they're where they're at.
But Folgers is also selling a shitload of coffee.
Exactly.
And that's because they're grandfathered in like Ma Bell.
Yep.
And everyone knows Folgers is okay.
Yeah. And so like for me, it's like I did a podcast yesterday. I haven't posted it yet, but I said the field of dreams is bullshit. Because if you build it, they don't come.
No, that's not how it works.
And I was like, Kevin Costner will put you out of business. Right?
Yeah.
Like
it's the same way of like, well, the hard work equals success. And that's not true.
nope.
Like if you hard work consistently done to yield progress is the key.
Which comes down to that intentionality thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we can all work hard. Like I can go sweep this parking lot all day. It's not going to help me grow my business, but I'm working hard.
Yeah. It's and I know right now, like habit's biggest hang up is me. And that hang up is that I don't have the RAM to treat it the way that I treat hate.
Totally.
Right. And so trying to figure out how do I give it the attention and direction when I don't have the hours and minutes to do it personally.
Yeah. Well, you have to borrow momentum. So you make it a baby of hate.
Right. And that's where it's done well enough that way. But the exciting thing I see about habit versus hate, right, is like hate doesn't work without me driving it.
Yep.
Like I can't not be in photos. I can't not.
Yeah. You're kind of all of it.
Part of the deal.
Yep.
I get that.
Yep.
Habit doesn't have a face, which makes it an interesting business to grow.
Yep.
Because I can't honestly ever sell hate because I got to go with it.
Yeah.
Unless we've changed things drastically at some point down the road.
Like there's a few ways, but we'll talk about that later.
To play to the bell curve or whatever it is, right? And I don't know how interested I am to do that. But with coffee, I'm interested. I'm interested in having as many people drink rad coffee as possible. And so it's just a matter of starting to figure it out. We've talked about kind of, through a group of super friends, like all kind of getting into the coffee thing because we all have businesses that depend on us being part of the face of the marketing. It's like, what if like 8 of us who all seem smart enough to run a business, like just manage a board and work ideas? I'm like, that seems fun.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like right down like my vision alley of like, I own like, I think 6 or 7 companies and it's like, but I have one core team.
Right.
And I advise that core team and then they go spread it out across the board. Cause like my core functions are like my podcast, my mastermind and my events that I do here for entrepreneurs. I was like, but I also own a diaper bag company, a backpack company, a supplement company, a consulting company, an AI app-based company that I'm own percentages or advisories on.
Sure.
And so like when they call me, I take those calls and I tell my team, I'm like, all right, do this, and they send them all out and they kind of like help run them.
Wow. Okay.
And that's kind of like the fun way. And here's the thing that I'll say too, and you get this more than anything, like when you envision and started Hade, what you thought it would look like, it looks nothing like that now.
It doesn't look like anything it did 2 years ago.
Of course, right? And so I'm like the same thing with the coffee because what ended up happening when we launched that coffee and we didn't like it anymore, Matt realized, and by the way, they moved out of Mammoth. They live up the street from us here. So we moved here together. Yeah. Matt realized, he's like, God, I don't really have a long game in this. And he's like, I'm just going to start making alcohol at my house. Now he owns a 8-figure distillery. That was born.
Just gonna start making alcohol at the house.
Was born out of us being like, well, we can't do this coffee thing anymore. And they sold the coffee house and then poured it all into the distillery and now has a multi-location countrywide distillery that's amazing that only was born out of like us thinking, but it was like, does it have to be coffee or can it be another consumable that's artisan that we care about?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, there's way more margins in booze.
Tons.
And so like for him, like he actually could make investor money back and like not sacrifice his soul. I mean, he was up at night roasting for like 8-9 hours. Yeah. And like, how do you outsource your skill in the kitchen? right? Like there's a reason,
Yeah,
only
there's
so many chefs.
I'll outsource as much as I can, and like trying to be smart with business of like, I know that there's like between 5 and 10% of my business that needs my fingerprint on everything.
Yeah.
That I can't change it. I can't get it to someone else. Outside of that, get as much help as possible.
Totally. Like Mike Michalowicz nails it. His book Clockwork, he calls it your QBR, your queen bee role, right? There's so many things that like a few of us can do. Like you're a master at relationships. That's what I do. Like you're personal. Like I can't hire that out to my team. Like they can't nurture my relationship with you to be like, hey bro, let's do a podcast.
Doesn't work.
It doesn't work, right? So for us, like we know for me, like it's standing on stage, it's doing interviews, it's connecting with people on calls, it's being relationships. So other than that,
yeah, me, it's the travel.
Yeah.
Like I know that the relation, because no one comes to St. Louis.
No one.
I'm not mad about that.
I was just in St. Louis.
Yeah. Look, I'm not mad about that.
Yeah, I mean,
But
I don't, yeah.
I'm 38. I don't have kids.
Yeah.
I can fucking travel.
Yeah.
And so I'll go see the people. Like
Totally.
I go hang out and I'm around and I get so much out of it just personally with ideas and stoke and motivation and drive that I don't even, the side effect of whatever the relationship in has always been this added bonus that I don't ever think about until one day, oh, there's a cool thing that's an opportunity.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so like, I think with the coffee thing, it's like, it's like, we're going to laugh about this in 3 years when we do an update episode and we're like, who would have thought we were selling that on subscription?
Yeah.
And I just think that's the beautiful part too, though, right? Like, I think you're aware of like, oh, it needs some RAM. And I'm like, well, cool. Let's dreamstorm a couple ways that we could replace RAM or add RAM.
Right.
And then prioritize it against like what we have that's aligned with what the 3-year vision is or that goal. Because like, I think for me, like that ambiguity thread, because I hate open loops because I'm a marketer. So to go back to that ambiguity thread, I kept things ambiguous because I could hide, right? Because I was like, if I don't look at the bank account or if I don't know exactly much, or I just say yes to everything, right? There was no series of inputs and outputs. It was basically a hobby and not a business. And so I learned how to do it in the business, but then I didn't ever apply it to prioritization of like initiatives or where I spend my time. And then my team and I started doing it with like, hey, this quarter, what do we want to accomplish? And we would have like full dream sessions. We'd spend 6 hours like, let's build it. Like, let's design Disney World.
Yeah.
And then we'd go and we'd take a break.
Scale back to reality.
And like, how would we do it? And then we're like, what holes exist in it? And then we'd be left with a list. I'm like, let's prioritize it. And we'd prioritize it based on impact, economics, confidence, and its ability to work. And then it's like, oh, we would have lost if we did any of that. And that is not what we thought would be on there, but holy crap, that makes sense.
Yeah. One of the things that's kind of like I look at now with, whether it's hiring people or making, big business decisions is where we want to be in 5 years and say, if in 5 years, like I guess like, one of the ways I think about it's like an Elon Musk, right? That this idea of going to Mars, if he's like, hey, in 1,000 years, are we an interplanetary species? Probably, because that means we're still around.
Yeah.
So let's just get started because that's happening. You're like, why are we waiting?
Yeah.
And so that's how I look at like a lot of stuff is like, well, in 3 years, do I think I have X, Y, and Z on my team? And if I do, let's get them in. Let's start.
Totally.
Let's get moving that direction, start taking steps that way and figure it out as we go.
Totally.
And so, yeah, I think, again, I'm aware completely that where the coffee company struggles is me.
Yeah.
It's because I don't have the RAM for those things because the amount of shit, like, so with Hate, like all the design work is me.
Yeah.
Well, concept of design. So like I will draw a sketch, iPad, do what I need to do to get to my designers with a good enough target that they know what I'm trying to accomplish pretty specifically.
Yeah.
And that makes it a big difference that I can speak their language with design and be able to get what I want made. But yeah, it's every week is a new thing. So
I watch you guys when you do your, like you and Rob and Dana and them. I'm like, my brain does not work like that. I can't even draw a stick figure. I'm like, but all your shit looks dope. So keep doing it.
Yeah, man. It's been a trip.
Yeah.
Like, I'm from a sport no one gives a shit about.
Yeah, you didn't choose the one for the glory. You're like, dude, nobody's going to know I'm the best in the world.
No, dude. More like if I did darts, people would be more impressed because people have played darts.
Totally. I'm like, I got recruited for like an axe throwing league the other day because I'm apparently pretty good. And I'm like, I feel this is like more televised than when I did the box jump.
Dude, it's 100%.
And I was like, and then like you see the cornhole championships on TV. Did you know there's a $50,000 a year rock, paper, scissors tournament?
Good for them.
The
Dude,
world
no skill.
championships. None.
There's not a skill to that. We can pretend there is, but there isn't.
Yeah. Maybe if like you're really good at body and instilling, like you're kind of like a hypnosis.
But if we have 100 people who play rock, paper, scissors, someone will win.
Yeah. Someone will win.
That's all that matters.
Someone will win. It's hilarious to me.
Can you imagine if you did that, right? And it was single round elimination, like someone did it and never lost a round. That's crazy.
You know, what's funny is I just had an event and I had 70 entrepreneurs and I did a rock, paper, scissors tournament.
Whoa.
Single elimination. And I was like, I want to see who wins. And here's what's nuts. This woman, it was her birthday.
Come on.
So I celebrated and I had them bring in a cake and sing happy birthday, right? Because like I love my peeps. And I was like, all right. And she's like, I'm going to win. And like she's screaming, it's my birthday. I'm going to win. No shit. She won.
Incredible.
74 entrepreneurs. So she beat 32 people or something.
She landed on the right
people.
timeline that day.
And literally I was like, they come running up to the stage for the final because they did it in the audience and then like winner moved on. And I was like, how? And I'm like watching this, like I'm biting my nails. And I was like, this woman, I want her around me. She's the queen of manifestation. Like whatever.
Dude, at that point, if I'm in the finals against her, I'm like, you win.
Yeah, you win. Like I was like, it's so crazy.
I'm throwing paper. I'm just going to put it out there and like do whatever you want.
Yeah. So Mike, I have a question because like you, like when you get to the point of strength that you had, like you don't get home runs anymore. Like you're fighting for like micro percentages.
Yeah. Same with throwing.
Same with throwing, but like you'll work a year.
Yeah. For five pounds.
To gain 5 pounds, to do whatever. And I feel like that's one of the reasons you win in business.
Well, so I was really, really able to correlate what worked for me in strength training to the business thing.
Yeah.
And, man, it goes back. I have a buddy of mine in radio, Jason Ellis, and I remember him saying it, and it fucking triggered for me big time because he got into radio, and he's like, yo, I'm not the most talented athlete. I wasn't a great skateboarder. I loved it, and I never stopped, right? And so when he got into radio and like realized he had some knack for it, and he's like, cool, 10 years. It takes 10 years for me to be good at this.
Yeah.
And so for me, I looked at that with the same way of lifting. Like there's not a single workout that makes me strong.
Yeah.
It's me not getting fucking hurt for 10 years. And so just keep making that progress, right? And like I tell people that like if you want to get strong, like bench, squat, deadlift, and overhead press moderately heavy once a week for the next decade. You can't fuck that up.
Yep.
And I looked at business the same way. It's like, yo, there's no one day or 1 month or any of that. Like this is the grind. Like understand we're getting into it. And we're 7 years in. And so I feel like I have some idea of what we're doing, but I probably don't know what 10-year looked like.
When I think that that's what's so amazing, because I think that's what's so missed. And like, if anybody listens on either show, like the business lesson that people pay millions of dollars for, right? Like it's the non-glamorous inputs that create momentum that you protect. You have to earn the right to try to hit a home run.
And for me, it's very similar to throwing.
Yeah.
And what I loved about throwing in track and field and Highland Games versus say football or the other sports I played, pass or fail, it's my fault.
Yep.
I either succeeded today because I did all the work and I did it right and I showed up when it counted, or I didn't because I didn't.
Yep.
Or I slipped. Shit happens too.
It does.
Right? Like, why did I get a calf sprain? Blah, 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 whatever it is. And the same way it works with business. It's like if I can just apply that approach of like, we just don't stop once we commit to a thing. And that's the podcast, right? Like how many people I know that start a podcast and lose steam after 3 episodes.
Dude, it was hard for me.
It's tough.
Yeah.
Especially like, so we're 100. This is like episode 185.
I think I'm on like 186 or something.
Yeah, it's like 185, and I'll still do occasional episodes that we don't count as episodes. So like Q&As or any of this other type of stuff. And I've never missed a week.
Yep.
And that was, I decided I'm doing a podcast, and I know the only way this works is you can't pause and panic about podcast number 1 being perfect because it's never going to be. No matter how much time, effort, preparation, editing, everything you put into episode 1, episode 100 is going to be better.
Yep.
Just get to episode 100.
Yep.
Start making mistakes and start taking note. I read a review and like I check in every once in a while on them and read one, and it was like, Matt talks over guests. He's telling the exact same stories, and it's gone from this to that. And like, it hurt.
Yeah.
And the reason hurt, because I'm aware, I've thought about those things, and he fucking said them, or she said them, or whoever it was, right? And so like, I don't look at that and go, fuck you. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, there's truth to that.
Yep.
Let's fix it.
Yeah.
And give a shit.
That's the most important part. Like, and even in the business stuff, like I watch people, and every day I'm hit with like, oh, you're the guy that built $1 billion company or $1 million company. You did this and that. Help me do it now. And I was like, okay, stop looking.
Yeah.
And they don't like it.
Well, dude, if you think someone outside of your business is the key to making your business grow,
yeah,
you've already lost.
Yeah, because you have to remember, like, I'm not a fire. I'm lighter fluid once the fire is burning.
That's exactly it. If you don't have it, everyone else is help.
Yep.
But you can't, then they'll just start a business. Like, they don't need your help. What is it you're bringing to the table?
Exactly. And I tell people, I was like, I mean, it's taken me years. Like I, because of like my childhood and stuff, like I was always like, I have to be the guy or nobody will like me. Like when I met you and even Aubrey, I was like, if I'm not the best of the blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, that's why they didn't like me. Cause I was like running around pretending to be this person and they like saw straight, but they saw this like wounded little boy and they loved him.
But the beauty of a room like that.
Yeah.
No one's the best at everything in a room like that. It's a room of mutants.
Totally.
And so like, look, I'm good at one thing that I could throw rocks further than fucking anyone in that room. And I got that part locked down.
And I'll never forget too, we went surfing and then Rutherford starts surfing. And then like, I'm like, you're like a surfing cheerleader. Like, how are you doing this, bro? And I love him.
I was bummed I missed that day. I missed the surf day.
And the first time I surfed was in Austin, Texas.
Crazy,
and I lived in Hawaii for 4 years. Like that's hilarious. But yeah, so I think what's so huge about what you said is like, it took me a long time to develop a healthy relationship with feedback because I was coming in like wounded, I'm incomplete, right? Because I was so identified by what was outside of me, like my results. And so then, you know, my wife kicks my ass all the time.
Sure.
My wife's been studying hypnosis and NLP for like 20 years.
Wow.
So like I got trained on to be who I am.
I've never been hypnotized.
Oh yeah. Yeah. She doesn't do it anymore. We have some friends, but like one of my biggest breakthroughs is like, I do hypnotherapy every 2 weeks.
Whoa.
Non-negotiable. I have like 3 hypnotherapists that I rotate. And one of them, all he does is coach UFC champions and World Series of Poker champions. He just helps them with their mindset. And it's mind blowing to me. But like one of the things that you said is like, I used to literally like hang my hat on that feedback. And my wife, like one thing she told me in the beginning, she's like, commitment isn't feelings. And it took maybe 8 years for me to really understand what that means, like in a relationship, as a father, like as a business owner. And then I started to get it. And then like the same thing for you, like I used to get the feedback and I would like attack. And my wife's like, okay. And she looked at me one day and she's like, you're a purple dinosaur. And I was like, oh, no, I'm not. She's like, notice how you didn't get upset. And I was like, oh,
wait.
And she's
How
like,
dare you?
Yeah, you get upset because it's true. So maybe you should take a look at it. And I was like, oh yeah. And I was like, and now I look at them as like, they're basically charting my path to success. Like you're giving me the roadmap to follow.
Listen, like you have to be for it. So like during my career as an athlete, and especially as a thrower, like the way throwing works is like your feedback directly from a coach every throw. Turn the right foot more, get over the left, stretch. You need to be patient. You need to do this. And it's every single throw. I get out of that and then tried entrepreneurship for a bit with the bike shop and it went poorly, mostly because 22-year-old me was involved. It was a bit less focused. And then I went into outside sales in the petrochemical industry and did that for 10 years. And so did relationships and did phone calls and cold calling and all this for a decade. And so like someone telling me no doesn't mean shit.
Yep.
That just means not right now. That's fine by me. Yep. I'll try again later. You probably forget that I asked. But it was really tough for me to go into that job because being an outside sales rep, like I'm not in an office. I don't have interaction with the other people that work for my company. I build my own schedule. There was no feedback. And that fucked me up for a long time. It's like, I don't know if I'm doing good. I don't know if I'm matching expectations of what you want from me. And like every time my phone rings, I assume you're going to fire me. And like I panic.
Dude, I had the same thing.
And so like I need something.
Yeah.
And so now it's really easy for me to look at sales and engagement and things like that. It's feedback. Yeah. It's just data of more of this or less of this.
Bro, when I started consulting and coaching, if somebody sent me an audio message, I'd have a panic attack and it would take me 3 days to listen to. And I'd respond and I would lie.
Because it's rude.
And I'm
because
like,
audio messages are rude.
And I'm like, I would respond, I would lie. I'm like, hey, I'm on a flight. I won't be able to listen to this for like 5 hours. Can you text it to me?
Yeah.
I would lie through my teeth because I was scared to play an audio message, and somehow them translating it to text was going to make it better because it was like somehow non-confrontational.
Well, dude, this is a concern I've got like going forward as a culture. And I think a lot of what we've seen, especially get amplified in the last year, is the way that we communicate now.
Yes.
Because we're communicating so much non-verbally, and we learned at the beginning that 90% plus of communication is nonverbals, which is eye contact and empathy and seeing the mood the person's you're in, the context of what the last 4 sentences we just fucking talked about were. All these things. And we've become a text-based society. And so you read it in your own tone. I don't know how many, like we had a receptionist that worked for one of the companies I worked for, doing hardware sales in the oil and gas industry. And man, I just always read everything she sent me in this like rah, 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 raging tone. And so like, I built this animosity toward her.
Yep.
And then anytime I was ever at the office, this wasn't Amy.
No.
Amy she's harsh, but she's not shitty.
Yeah. It's just direct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't rude. It was still jokes. It was just dry and flat. And via text message, man, or emails, it was really hard for me not to read under the context that I wanted it under.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not fair.
Nope.
And so, of course, we do that on a global scale now. Like if you're hurt and you're damaged and you're scared, of course you read things as an attack. Instead of just go,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
like,
that
it's so funny too, because like I have this, and even the thing that I've noticed, right? Like it used to be okay to treat asynchronous communication as asynchronous communication, but the amount of people get mad, like if you don't respond in 5 minutes, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I was reading books to my son to put him to bed before I cuddled my wife and ate dinner. Like, F you.
It took me a long time to do that.
Yeah.
Because, man, again, with the outside sales job, like if you're not the one answering the phone, that business goes to someone else.
Totally. Like I coach some realtors,
and so
right?
like, I respond to fucking emails and text messages like I'm holding my phone waiting for you to hit me. And people, it's weird when I don't respond now because people are like, everything okay?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I was just in another country,
Yeah,
you know,
totally.
or whatever it is, or on camp.
Totally.
And it's taken a long time for me to deal with waiting to respond.
Yep.
Because I still would rather just get it done because I'll forget. That's how I combat having a shit memory.
Yeah. You're like,
because I just do it immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, you know, like I've gone through so many evolutions like you have where it's like, okay, I was wounded, then I got healed. But then after I like quote unquote got healed, I relied on that external feedback. Am I doing good? Am I not doing good? Because I still had a little bit of that wounded boy in me of like, is this right? Is this not right? And then I was like, I had to go the other way of like, none of this feedback matters, right? And then like now in the middle, I'm like, okay, cool. And like I probably spend 2 to 3 hours a day in silence, like alone in a stillness practice. And really it's like, I have this philosophy that as children, right? Like, and this is from my plant medicine and meditation, breathwork stuff I've done as children, like we are completely unattached to anything but the moment and we are ourselves, right? And then as we get older, we get less and less and less and less time with ourselves and we stack it all on as a means of success. But if you look at the average human's day, they don't even shit alone anymore.
No.
Their phone is with them. Like I have a Tibetan monk who's in my mastermind. He was in a monastery for 7 years in silence. And I had him on the podcast and this dude is like, and he's a hypnotist now, hypnotherapist now. But he was like on the podcast and I was like, of this whole show, the most profound takeaway was he's like, you're not living if you can't shit without your phone. Oof. And bro, it blew my mind. And like for a month I was like, holy moly. Like I like had anxiety going to the bathroom without my phone. And I was like, oh my goodness.
I got broke on the phone thing.
Yeah.
A couple years ago when I went and did that 2 weeks on the Grand Canyon.
Oh yeah.
So that's 2 weeks, no cell phone.
No cell phone.
And like, this was 3 years ago. This wasn't like 2008 when cell phones kind of worked.
Yeah, I know.
Like, I'm in the middle of business and trying to do shit. And like my business partner's taking care of stuff while I'm gone. And it's 2 weeks without your phone. And so like, shitting, right? Some of those campsites, because you don't ever leave the river. Like it was a weird thing too, because I didn't go in a building or a thing for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Which is, I haven't done that in my life.
I have, but
Yeah,
yes.
right. Like I have not. And so like, it was really great. But like, yeah, just to have that moment of like, the world gets really small again. And these are the only people that exist. And I really now crave when I can punch into that for a bit.
Yeah. Because I feel like, Stephanos, one of my business partners and dear friends, we talk about this. Like I talk about the meaning of life, or like, what is it, right? Like, I feel like I've accomplished what I've wanted. I have my family, I have everything. I was like, no, I have something here. And I was like, but what's the finish line? I was like, because I don't believe there actually is one, but I was like, I think awareness is. Like, I think awareness is the finish line. When you are in a moment, and moment to moment, you get to make a choice. I was like, but it's interesting because to be aware, you have to be in that really small world. Yeah. But yet you can only be in that really small world when you're by yourself. And yet it's the one muscle that we don't flex and work out every single day.
No, the stillness and like mindfulness time has been really, really valuable to me. But I don't do complete stillness great.
Yeah.
I figured out like my best option for mindfulness is go get a massage.
Oh yeah.
Because if something good's happening to the machine, my brain will never kick into we're wasting fucking time.
Yep.
I'm like, oh, we're doing a nice thing. And then my brain's allowed to solve problems and sort through things and work stuff out and file it away. Yep. The same as if I'm walking on the treadmill, doing something that's not hard. Recently one I didn't expect. So I got invited on a motorcycle trip a couple weeks ago.
I was super jealous, by the way.
I'm not sure how that all worked out. I was the fourth wheel on a really rad trip and stoked to be there. But 10 hours on a motorcycle, like, so you're with a group, but you're not talking. Mm-mm. So it's a really strange thing. And then like, your body's busy and paying attention, but it's not like priority one because I'm not in traffic. I'm not in a panic. I don't need my hands on the bars because cruise control and I can see where the road is. But I'm not checked out. Yep. And so like you're leaning with the bike and like this mindfulness and flow state that I was in for 10 hours, like, I'd put the last day that we were on the bike when we rode from Monterey back through down Big Sur, down PCH, all the way back to LA and got in at like 10 p.m. That day was as like emotionally big for me and challenging as many different psychedelic experiences I've had because there's nowhere to go.
Nowhere.
And like I cried a bunch for like 30 minutes. I thought about shit with my dad. I figured out other stuff. And then this, wild gratitude for like, my body wasn't ever going to do this. Like I couldn't bend. I couldn't get on a bike. I couldn't do any of this. And like this new life that I've got, like, I ain't never going back.
Yeah, dude. And here's what I'll tell you. This is the one thing I've learned. Every person I've ever coached, every company, every human, the secret to success is subtraction, not addiction. It's always subtraction, not addition.
Interesting.
And it's really interesting because
I'll let you explain that more.
I will. What we expect is we're like, okay, like you're an athlete, right? So it's easy for you. There's no one else that's you. You're the secret weapon.
Right.
But yet you don't ever practice sharpening your own weapon. Instead, you listen to other people's lyrics, other people's books, consume other people's social and other people's videos, and you wonder why you have anxiety and don't have the life you want because you're building their vision in your tool. Like they're sharpening your tool to help them. Like I had a rule for 3 years. I was only allowed to consume 30 minutes of content a week.
Whoa.
That was one of
That's a level of discipline. I'm not sure.
Hardest things I had ever done.
Because accidentally.
Because then I had two options. Be still or create. I created. I went live every day on Facebook for 9 months and gained 181,000 fans.
Consistency.
Because I was like, I'm just going to show up every day. There's nothing to consume. And I'm not regurgitating or pontificating somebody else's idea. I'm like, that's what I feel like talking about today.
I get careful with like following different graphic designers and stuff like that.
Totally.
Like I know when I need to like catch the scent of a thing.
Totally.
And then I'm also aware sometimes of like too much.
Yeah. And like now I'm like, I consume, now I read a lot, I do all this, but like, here's another one. Like my mastermind students, for example, I'm like you, like I intentionally sit in stillness to practice my ability, but like I call my stillness practice a boredom practice, which means I can be walking, I can be staring at my lake, but I can't have anything around me but the moment. I have to watch the duck, the fish. Like I have to be unattached to the thought. And it's a practice, but like compassion's a muscle. Boredom is a muscle. Your creativity is stemmed from boredom. One of the biggest gifts to children is boredom. That's where they have to create their own experiences. And like, we have that with my son. Like, he's 4.5. He plays Minecraft and Roblox and watches videos, but it's only a couple minutes a day. And he's like, Daddy, I want to play. I'm like, hey, Bubby, it's time to play alone. He's like, I'm bored. I'm like, okay, create something.
Yep.
And then, a half an hour later, he's gone for 4 hours, like building stuff. And I was like, whoa, which never would have come. And so,
yeah, Legos and Minecraft are not the same.
Yeah, no, but he's really good with Legos too. Kid's like a rocket ship. But then I looked at it, and so I practiced this, and one of my coaches, one of my men's teachers was like, listen, he's like, we have no question about your ability to endure. He's like, you, like Matt, like all of us, like, yeah, we'll suffer. We'll show you, right? And he's like, that's easy for you. That's easy for you. He's like, you don't care. You'll out hike, you'll outrun, like whatever. I was like, He's like, great, sit still.
Fuck.
And I was like, F you. And like, I was literally like a cockroach. I was like, but can I? And he's like, no.
So where does your anxiety with not being able to sit still stem from? I know mine.
Yeah. So for me, well, I was afraid of the shadow, right? Because like ultimate presence, super small world. And so then I would get like this distinction of like, oh, there it is. And I'm like, but I can't go fix it right now. Oh, I'm going to lose it. And it was this like subversive addiction to control again. And so he started me, he's like, just do 10 minutes a day. He's like, stillness. He's like, I don't care if you lay down, sit down, you just have to be eyes open, no music, nothing. And then I was like, all right. And remember, like, I don't know if this was like you with Ice Baths. When I started Ice Baths, it was like, oh man, this sucks for like 15 days. I only made it like a minute and a half. And day 16 was like 22 minutes.
Yeah.
And it was like,
yeah, there's a switch that flips, especially with cold showers.
As you develop your relationship with it, right? And so the same thing happened with stillness. And then I didn't even realize I was staring at my lake. I sat there for 6 hours.
Wow.
It felt like 10 minutes. And I literally was like a pig in shit riding a unicorn over a rainbow. Like I couldn't even explain what it was. And there was nothingness. It was just like pure presence. And I was like, okay, cool. So when I made the rule of like no consumption, that means I started working out in silence. That means I started driving in silence. And I'm going to tell you.
Okay, yeah. Because immediately when you say media, I'm like, video. Immediately I was like, cool, no video content. Yeah. But you're talking about anything.
Yeah, because like if you come watch me train at Access, right? You'll see me doing heavy deads this morning. And I cried.
Yeah.
I cried because the weight hurt.
Nah, you're working
shit. I cried because my body was under physical exertion and my guard was down. And I literally purged an emotion.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh, this guy's repping out X amount of weight. Like, oh, it hurts. I'm like, yeah, you look at it. Like, I cry in the gym like 3 times a week, bro.
Yeah, I have no problem with tears.
Yeah.
They rarely end up in the gym anymore.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I'm very comfortable in that world.
Oh, me too. I just like, for me, what it is like when I put my body under physical load, the last guard typically drops, right? Because it's a super vulnerable thing to be lifting weight and exerting yourself.
I'm also just so stoked that I can train again.
Totally.
And so I'm just pumped.
Totally. And so I assigned this real quick, just to close this loop. I assigned this to my mastermind students. And I'm like, I've never seen 30 millionaires scramble so fast in my life.
To do nothing.
I assigned to them 1 hour in a week, like 1 hour. I got asked 60 questions. Well, can I have this? Can I have a notebook? Can I have this? And I was like, you guys are like cockroaches when the exterminator walks in. There was so much resistance because in that space is the answer.
Okay. As a look, not looking for a loophole, as like now I'm like, I have a thing to add to my week.
Yeah.
Noise canceling headphones.
I'd use them.
Eye mask.
I always tell people to practice with your eyes open.
Okay. Because
you need to be able to maintain structure with distraction.
Yeah.
The noise, the cars, the boom. Like, like you ever been in an event? Like, I mean, we've seen this a lot. We meet with other people, but like we'll be in a room and this one person walks in the room and their presence alone gets the attention of the whole room.
Yep.
And they are unaffected, but also controlling the room just from walking in the door.
No, they're very rad to watch. Occasionally when you see it, you're like, son of a bitch.
That's the muscle you're practicing by sitting still. Like in the men's work that we do, like, so if
the room doesn't affect you when you walk in.
No. And because of that, you affect the room.
Oh man.
And so like, the masculine practice is always strong back, soft front, right? Like a man in his power isn't sucking his gut in. His belly is relaxed, but his spine is strong because that's what makes the feminine feel safe. right? Not like
Sure.
like invisible lat syndrome, right? Like it's this thing, you're like, oh, wow. Like what we are taught as structure is really quite the opposite. It's compensation. Because presence isn't something that you hold or you flex. It's something that you are. And that's a muscle that like we don't practice.
No.
And I'm like, in 10 minutes a day, like I have mastermind students who come in and they commit to me just for 6 months, right? They all stay. For literally 30 days, I don't give them a strategy and tactic. I make them delete part of their schedule and I just have them do a couple things a day. Most of them have 3 or 4x their business in 30 days through subtraction.
Through doing less.
Doing less.
Yeah. So that's recently, I don't remember when this thought started, but it was regarding cold showers in the morning, right? There's something very simple. Or regarding ice bath or meditation or mindfulness or the sauna or those type of things. And like as a business owner, as a person who wants to improve, if you like standing in the cold shower, I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm asking you to do less. And the same with diet, right? Like with fasting, if you're not willing to do less to win, I can't trust you to do more.
Yep.
And I'm like,
yep.
That's an important one that like, for me to get better, I just have to be in the sauna. Okay. I can be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like the thing for the subtraction versus the addition, I tell people success looks like a Christmas tree. That's the best way I can define success. So you build the foundation, right? The trunk, right? The non-negotiables, the things you can control, right? Those create momentum. And then you're like, oh, we got to grow this. So you expand the bottom branch and you get out to a point, but what got you out isn't going to get you up. You have to trim back to the trunk and take that growth that you had back to the foundation higher up, get back to what you can control before the next level. And you don't ever have to go as wide again because you're sharpening yourself all the way up. Like success looks like a Christmas tree.
I like that.
And it's expansion and contraction. It's modulation. It's the human experience. That also includes you're going to be crushing and have emotionally sad days and emotionally up days, right?
Which is why for us, like, Bonnie and I and our thing, like we know we have to fuck off and disappear for a bit.
You have to.
Like us traveling this way and like camping in the summer and moving around and like we need to leave town. They're non-negotiables.
They're non-negotiables.
I need it.
They have to be. And so when you think about it, like I tell people, like I was coaching one of my students saying, he's a realtor, right? He's like, time equals money. I was like, no, time makes you the employee. You want to be one of the best realtors in the world, but yet you work for your clients. No, you lead your clients. Stop demoting yourself and sacrificing yourself. You have created a codependent relationship with your clients and you've quote unquote justified it as being available.
Right.
And I was like, don't lie to yourself. No. And he's like, ouch. And I was like, no, I'm serious.
It helps though. Yeah. Like if you're not willing to take that medicine.
Totally. And I was like, I'm the same way. I'm like, I just got back off an emergency trip. My grandmother's on hospice, like unexpected. And I went back to where I grew up. I've only been back there like 5 times since 2002. And so like, I'm in the belly of the beast with my grandmother. We've already buried her son, who's my father. I'm a namesake for my dad's brother, who was her first son that was buried, and I look identical to and follow the same path. So I get to see my name on the headstone next to my dad, right next to where my grandmother's gonna go. And here was the hardest part. I was off the grid for 2 weeks, and everything worked better without me. And I still had ties. Like, why doesn't my team need me? Why? And I was like, and
they're not supposed to.
I had to sharpen that with myself. Like, when was the last time somebody went on a cross-country flight and just sat in the seat for 5 hours? Ugh. Right? And I was
seems
like,
awful to me.
It does. And it's like, but what are we trying to distract ourselves from? What are we trying
I'm trying to distract myself from being uncomfortable on an airplane.
Well, for you, you're kind totally.
I also fly 40 plus times a year. Like I fucking hate it.
Oh, dude, 3 years ago,
it's lost all luster.
One of the other reasons I don't love consulting is in 2018, I did 168 flights. And Branson was like under 1. And so I was like, never again. Like I hit elite status on every airline organically.
Oh no.
And like every hotel, like never again. And so like the subtraction versus addition thing, there's this thing that I've learned, right? Like I'm successful. I've worked with everyone. Like my biggest private client was worth like $15 billion. Everything, they all have one thing in common. There is a direct correlation between the amount of alone time they spend to the amount of success that they have. And if you look, every single time there's different levels to this game. And every time at the top, they all start or have a gratuitous alone time practice.
Yeah.
And I mean, like all the way to the top of like Richard Branson, right? Like I think it's like 68 companies or something, right?
Yeah, I love my alone morning routine.
1 hour a day he works.
It's
the secretary comes in, briefs him on everything. He gives his answers. The rest of it's alone time.
and he is pouring rocket fuel out for that hour.
And I am like watching, and like I've been behind the scenes of all of this plus my own. And here's the crazy part. Of course it works. We as an athlete, you can't train 24 hours a day.
No.
Temperance is the secret. Recovery is the secret.
There is a process like in the grinding and building the business
1000%.
that you can't do that.
1000%. No, like I'm not advocating like you just like, work an hour a day and like spend the rest of your time in stillness. That's why there's a correlation. Right. In the beginning, you go wide, you hit your foundation principles, you go wide, but then you have to trim and prune back. And that's where you have to practice. And as you go up that tree, you're hiring that out, you're buying this back, you're spending more and more time alone, which is getting you into the voice, the deeper level, the vision, your own kind of creation that's coming out of it.
I have free time to do this.
Yeah, this. Like I would do this 24/7,
or
365.
Or go and do this thing with Auburn or any of these other places. Like I get the freedom to travel. Like coming up, like travel wise, we will get home from here the 20th. Or like the 18th, I have a vasectomy, and then that's done. Get that out of the way. Go ahead.
I had that a couple years ago.
Pull the goal. Like, I'm not interested in the kids thing, and like, my chick wants to get off birth control. She's been chemically castrated for 20 fucking years. Let's get her dialed, man. Yeah. My hormones fucking matter. I bet hers do too.
Yeah.
And so we do that, and then we leave August 5th for Iceland. We're there for 3 weeks, and then home. And then in September, a friend of ours has a fight. Steffi Cohen's got a boxing match that we're going to go watch. Hap Thor and Eddie are going to fight, so we'll go watch that. Yeah, be fun. It's like live King Kong versus Godzilla. Why wouldn't I want to see this?
I know.
Pull it for you, Haffy.
They're hilarious,
dude. And then I'm going to Africa for 7 days or 10 days with some friends to do 3 days of rafting on the Zambezi.
Wow.
And then Bali in October for 2 weeks. I love it.
I'd invite you to our event in October, but you're going to be in the Zimbabwe.
Well, dude, I happily come up here.
Yeah, you can come back. Yeah, I live here now too, dude. Yeah. So, so here's the thing I say. Everybody,
we're up here a couple times a year.
Yeah. Well, now I know.
Yeah, we come pretty regularly.
Because I was like, bro.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm glad I saw you on stories.
Yeah, because we're going podcast tomorrow with Andy Stumps up here.
Oh, he's up here too?
Yeah, he lives in fucking Whitefish.
Oh my God, it's hilarious. Yeah. There's a pocket of us here.
Killers. Yeah.
And none of us even
Everyone just disappeared.
Like we're all like 10 minutes. Like I was driving to the airport there. I was like, Rob was picking somebody up and I was picking up my wife. Because we're kind of in a small area too.
Yeah. And also the vehicles stand out a bit. Yeah, they're not hard to recognize.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Or like I drive by and you see him jumping a Porsche through the dirt field.
Dude. We just arrived like on whatever day that was, Saturday, I guess. Like we got out of the car and like Heavy D's here building this giant dirt jump, and like they built that oval track that morning. What should we do?
Yeah, I know.
And then like it got real serious, and the next thing we're jumping a fucking truck with that Porsche. Like, all right.
I don't know Heavy D, but I've learned if I see him anywhere, trouble is about to ensue in the best way.
I just want to spend as much time with full-time lunatics.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So the thing that I think is important, right? Like, everybody has to have a fitness practice, right? Like if not, you're just choosing to die. You just have to move, right?
Yeah.
But it can be thousands of different ways, but you have to try them all. You have to practice flexing the muscle long enough to get the result to see if it's something you want to incorporate. And I've yet to find one human being that has practiced like a stillness practice or an alone practice
that it hasn't helped.
That hasn't kept it.
Damn it. I'm on it.
And
this is now, it's another thing I've got to do.
It's the inverse. Cause like if you follow Joe Dispenza or you do any of that stuff, we have to realize that like, and I say this all the time, because like I said, I'm 3 colors of crayons in my box to go all the way back to the beginning.
My toolbox has a hammer and some other shaped hammers.
Yeah. Right, I make big holes, but I get through.
I'm trying to use these other tools that was a big message that came through with Aya on me. It was like, you've traveled around to meet all these smart people and you just keep reaching for the hammer to fix all your own shit. Are you learning stuff?
Yeah, right.
I'm like, fuck.
Oh yeah, I did.
Fine.
I did have an Aya that I wasn't called to, that was a little too soon, and she reminded me very powerfully that I needed to integrate some stuff. Oh yeah, I was that. And then And then I tried again on psilocybin, and oh, you'll appreciate this one. She's like, "Oh, what? Trying to take a different vehicle to the same destination?" Yeah. And I was like,
"No."
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, I'm out.
No, man.
That I will never forget that. I was literally like, I had to run out of the house, and the road turned into Black Widow, like spiders and clowns. And I'm not scared of either, but repeating patterns or spinning rides make me nauseous. And it was just spinning. And she's like,
back in the house.
She's like, "Nope, this is going to spin until you get this nastiness out. Why'd you come back?" Why? And I purged in the road for like an hour. And then it was like pure heaven. Like, of course, right? It didn't feel like it at the time. But it was just it was so nuts to me.
Yeah.
And I forgot my train of thought, so we'll go back to it in a minute.
Well, dude, we're an hour and 40 in.
Oh, well, yeah.
Let's call it. I'll be here for a couple more days too.
Yeah,
so
we can do another one.
Yeah, we do another one. That'd be rad.
I love it. We should get your lady on it too.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, that'd be
Let's
dope.
do that. We'll do another one over here. Easy enough. Dude.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, because this is going on both of our shows.
Yeah, absolutely.
So everybody check out Matt's.
Yeah, mine is the Umso podcast, and yours is
the Mind of George podcast.
Mind of George podcast. There you go.
Yeah, because it belongs in a straitjacket, so I just shared the safe pieces with you.
I did Umso because it just allows me to talk about whatever fuck I want.
I know. That's why I was like, what do I name it? I'm like, something that lets me talk about everything.
Right. I don't want that much direction.
No.
I have enough things that are like, I can't get too far colored out of the lines. Totally. And this one's one that like, this one's mine.
Totally.
I want to talk about what I want. If I want to have friends on and play a dumb card game, we do that.
Yeah, I love it. I'm going to have to start playing some more too.
So, dude.
I love it, man.
Thank you.
Yep.